Hello and welcome back to another Masterminds video. I know I haven't uploaded in a while, so let's get back on track with monthly videos. So anyways, today is the 737 MAX, and should you fly it, we'll talk about what was revolutionary about it and what went wrong about it. And finally, the important question, should you fly the 737 MAX?
Drag brake check good. Forward fin check good. Aft fin check good. LGS check good.
Ready for flight.
T-minus 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Command engine start. 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff.
So, this is the 737 MAX 8. The only 737 MAX released before the grounding, as they were all released 1 year apart from each other. The 737 MAX 8 is the long-range, low-capacity 737 MAX. Then, the MAX 9 is the mid-range, mid-capacity 737, and finally, the MAX 10 is the large-capacity, short-range MAX plane. But what is the difference between the new 737 MAX planes versus the older 737s? We'll get to that later. But the problem with the 737 MAX starts in September of 2014 with the new Airbus A320neo, in which Airbus put either the Pratt & Whitney PW1100G-JM or the CFM International LEAP 1A engines, and as the airlines rushed to get these planes into their fleet, this is because the engines actually have a wider diameter than the standard engine from previous A320s. This allows a higher bypass ratio, which makes the engine more efficient. And once the 737neo started dominating the market, Boeing knew they were in trouble because if a different company, like Airbus, that offers a better plane than Boeing, they can lose tons of money in sales of those type of aircraft. So, in order to catch up back onto sales, Boeing was needing to redesign their widely popular 737 model again, but they ran into a problem with putting new CFM International LEAP 1A engines onto their 737s, as it was too large for the low-riding 737. But why are they so low? Well, let's go back to April 1967. In 1967, airports weren't fully developed and especially starting airports. And Boeing, in order to reach markets of airlines operating out of these airports as hubs or destination routes, they designed the 737 to be as close to the ground as possible for small or non-existent baggage carriers and other equipment necessary. But if you look at older 737s, you'll notice they're very inefficient, thin engines packed close under the wings. But then later in 1984, with the release of the planes like 737-300 and 400, otherwise known as the 737 Classics, they were upgrading to more efficient, henceforth bigger engines, the CFM 56-3 turbofan engines, upgraded from the previous Pratt & Whitney JT8D low bypass engines. Then, with the next generation of 737 in 1997, they now came with slightly upgraded CFM 56-7s, also with the flattened engine case like the older generation of 737 Classics, to the new 737-600, 700, 800, and 900, seating between 108 and 215 passengers. Not only that, but the 737 Next Gen included winglets, as the previous 737 Classics did not have any winglets, as winglets make it more efficient for having shorter wings. So that was a very brief history of the 737. And so, how did Boeing put these bigger engines onto the 737 MAX planes? Well, in order to fit bigger engines under the wings, Boeing decided to physically mount the engines higher and forward on the wing. This can be seen in the Boeing 737 promotional video, while a near vertical takeoff, where you can physically see the top of the engine case is above the wing. But this causes a major problem during takeoff, and that is due to the difference in placement. When at full throttle during takeoff, the plane noses pitch down in a dangerous amount, possibly causing the plane to stall. So what Boeing decided to do to solve this issue is they installed the AOA sensor, or angle of attack sensor, at the front of the plane, seeing the pitch and using their new software, MCAS, or Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, to lower the nose. Not just that, but the 737 MAX included dual winglets to further reduce drag and improve efficiency with their newer engines. So what went wrong with the 737 MAX? Well, it starts with the A320neo. Again, since the A320neo was essentially the same plane as the A320, they were able to market it as essentially the same planes, and pilots would need little to no additional training before flying the A320neo. This gained the A320neo even more sales, and Boeing wanted a piece of that pie. Also, they marketed their plane as the same as the 737 Next Gens without mentioning the MCAS software at all in a 2-hour iPad course before flying the new 737 MAX. But that wasn't the only problem. The 730 and the 737 MAX, it turned out that the AOA sensor, or angle of attack sensor, wasn't fully accurate on its own, and in 2 tragic cases, this one sensor was to blame for feeding the computer, MCAS, with incorrect sensor data and pitching the plane nose down even farther when flying at a safe pitch. And the lack of training for the pilots meant that they couldn't turn off the MCAS software because they didn't even know that the MCAS software existed. Even other pilots before the crashes reported to the FAA, or Federal Aviation Administration, about the nosing down of the plane, luckily not resulting in any crashes before this. After the crashes on Ethiopian Airlines 737 MAX 8 crash on March 10, 2019, and Lion Air 737 MAX 8 crash on October 29, 2018, China was the first to act by on March 2019 they placed a ban on the 730 MAXs in their airspace. And later, the FAA banned the 737 to fly at all. Since then, no 737 MAX has been able to fly until just recently, but before that, the 737 MAX would have to go through many FAA certifications. But before the testing, they would have to go through physical improvements. So, what did they do? Well, since their sensor failed by giving off false readings, they therefore added a second sensor to the other side, so that just in case the first sensor showed incorrect sensor data, the other one would be correct. And in addition to that, they tuned the software to be less aggressive, and finally, for the training, before flying the newly certified 737 MAX, the pilots would have to go through additional training on how to turn off in case of failures again in the future. During this period of testing the 737 MAX, many MAX planes sat in parking lots and storage hangars of many airports, losing money for the airline. So they always had to get their planes into the air, as well as they were canceling orders, and Boeing also had a full parking lot of their 737 MAXs waiting to go to their customers, and some waiting to get painted, but none were able to take off to transport to other areas at all. Then, after many months of testing later, the 737 MAX was certified again and was able to take to the skies again. But this is not how the story ends. Right now, after the certification, I would have said yes, it is safe to fly the 737 MAX. Since the FAA says it is safe, and out of 100 or hundreds of flights, it was only the 2 that ended. And even previously, I would have said it was safer than traveling by car, But new safety measures, I would have said that it would be safe to fly. But that was before. As I said, I would have. Nowadays, the 737 MAX 8, 9, and 10 are subject to even more issues. They are now all having electrical issues like the 787 first encountered, but these are minor and only ground the plane in some areas for small periods of time. But like the 787, they will all eventually be worked out. So is it safe to fly the 737 MAX? Well, yes and no. It is still safer to fly the 737 MAX before grounding than it is in a car. But if you're scared of these issues, then no, and otherwise yes, and eventually, hopefully, all these issues will be sorted out. Not to mention that other problems are still arising in earlier planes, such as the 737 Classics, so these issues are not specific to the 737 MAX. Anyways, I'll leave you with that. Anyways, thanks for watching, make sure to subscribe, bye.